Hi guys, and welcome to another video. As you know, this channel is all about finance and investing. And one thing that I'm really keen on is the relationship between you and your money. So in today's video, you've got a little bit of help from a special guest.
Hi.
So this is Maddie, and if some of you recognize her, that's because she was my little elf that helped me eat Christmas food at Christmas time. And it turns out she's also my girlfriend. So in today's video, what we're going to talk about is the connection between money and mental health, as Maddie is a personal trainer but has a specialism and interest in mental health. So Maddie, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, yes, so I'm Maddie. I'm a personal trainer with a background in psychology and a special interest in exercise for mental health, but also I'm really interested in all the other factors that can affect our mental health. And I'm sure many of you are aware that your financial situation is one of these. So today, Anthony and I are going to have a little chat about how money and mental health are linked and maybe some ways that you might want to look after your financial situation if you're struggling with your mental health at the same time.
Okay, so Maddie, is your money and mental health linked?
Yes, it's most certainly linked. Research shows that 18% of people with mental health issues are also in debt, and people with depression who are in debt are more than 4 times more likely to still have depression 18 months later compared to people who are not in financial difficulty. So there's definitely a relationship between your mental health and your financial situation.
Okay, that's really interesting. So why are they so closely linked?
Well, there are 2 main reasons why money and mental health are so linked. The first one might seem quite obvious. It's that if you've not got enough money, then you might struggle to look after your mental health. So you might struggle with things like paying your rent, paying your mortgage, paying your bills, providing enough food to put on the table, just like basic necessities which you need to support mental health. And also you might not have enough money for like fun things, so things like going on holiday, going for meals out, days out, things like that, which can have a positive effect on your mental health. So yeah, it can be quite stressful and quite anxiety provoking if you can't even, just like pay your bills or provide enough food to eat. So that's the first reason.
And that's really important because you do need to pay your essentials, but also you need to have enough money to have some fun too. And having people breathing down your neck, like your bank or your landlord, can be incredibly stressful. And what's the other way which money and mental health are linked?
So the second way that money and mental health are linked is that people with mental health issues are less likely to be in employment compared to people without mental health issues. So I think it's like 43% of people who have mental health issues are in employment, full-time employment, compared to about 74% of mentally healthy people. So obviously you're not going to have as much money coming in every month. And also related to this, people with mental health issues may struggle with like managing their finances. So they might be less able to communicate with their essential services, such as their banks or their energy companies, for example. And they might find it harder to manage their spending, manage their budgeting, all these kinds of things, which obviously are going to have a big effect on like your incomings and outgoings every month, which can then have a knock-on effect on your mental health. So there are several ways in which they're linked.
That's really interesting, especially as we're going through the pandemic. And you mentioned joblessness and how that can impact your mental health. And we've seen over the last year on how a number of people have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. So has COVID-19 impacted people's mental health?
It really has, yeah. This has just added like a whole new dimension to already a complicated issue. So lots of households and lots of individuals have lost income over the past year as a result of the pandemic. I think it's something like 28% of households have lost income this past year because of COVID-19. So that's obviously going to make it a lot harder to meet their basic needs. And also there's been a lot more non-payment of bills and of mortgages in the past year. And also an increase in the number of people seeking benefits. So this really shows that a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet as a result of the pandemic. So in terms of the effect of the pandemic on people's mental health, this has obviously been massive, as you can probably imagine. So back in June 2020, 69% of adults were somewhat or very worried about the effect of the pandemic on their lives. Obviously, this was over 6 months ago, so this figure is probably likely to be a lot higher right now. as it's probably gone on a lot longer than maybe we thought back in June, and it's still very much affecting most of us. I also read somewhere that it's expected that after the pandemic, 20% of the UK population will need specialist mental health support, so things like therapists, counsellors, to help them overcome the effects of the pandemic. And these will be mainly for things like depression, anxiety, trauma and grief in particular.
Yeah, and it sounds like this problem isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon either.
Definitely not, no.
You can already see, and one thing that I'm keen on mentioning before, is there's a real disconnect between financial markets and actually the day-to-day lives of people. The financial markets, since March, have quite literally just been going straight up. But as we're seeing in our societies, that people are losing their jobs and businesses are closed. So this pandemic is going to last a hell of a lot longer. As soon as we reopen, life isn't going to go back to normal, at least for many people who are suffering from issues with their mental health, also money issues. One of the big things that people always talk about is money can't buy you happiness. Is that true?
I'd say that is true to an extent. However, as I mentioned just now, you do need a certain amount of money to be able to look after yourself and just provide a roof over your head, have food to eat, pay your bills, etc., etc. You do need some money for that. However, it's not a linear relationship, so there does get to a point where actually it kind of levels off and you might still be making more money, but that doesn't mean that your well-being carries on going up.
Okay, so how much money do you need to be happy?
Well, good question, Anthony. There's been some research into this. So back in 2010, Daniel Kahneman looked at exactly this question. So he wants to know, how much money do we need for optimum mental well-being? And he studied 450,000 Americans, so obviously it was like a massive study. So you can generalize from it, I would say. And he looked at their incomes. He asked them about their well-being, their mental well-being, on 4 different scales. And he generally found that happiness and well-being increased with income up to a point. But then once income reached $75,000, it started to level off and there were no more increases in well-being. So $75,000 is about £50,000. From this, we can kind of generalise that once you're earning around £50,000, if you earn more than this, it's probably not going to have a big effect on your well-being and your happiness. But if you earn less than this, then maybe earning a bit more money might improve your well-being.
That's really interesting, because a lot of people think that when they become a millionaire or they earn loads and loads of money, they'll instantly be happy. So why do you think that when you hit a certain amount, which is the £50,000, $70,000 mark, after that you're not getting any happier?
I think one of the main reasons is possibly because once you're earning up to $50,000, you can afford things like holidays and days out, which we're mentioning, which can improve your well-being. You can also afford things like healthcare. Remember that this study was done in America, so they would have had to pay for healthcare, which is obviously going to have a big effect on your well-being if you can't afford healthcare. But then the question of why your happiness doesn't increase after this point possibly is because to earn more than this, you might have to be working really long hours, which is actually going to have a detrimental effect on your well-being. The authors also suggested that maybe once you earn more than this amount, you might have less of an ability to savour small pleasures in day-to-day life. Is there anything else you think might affect?
Well, talking from personal experience, obviously I'm a professional in the world of finance, so I know many people from the world of finance, the legal world, who work very long hours, and as a result we get paid more than average. Although people look at these professions and think, oh, they're rolling in money, they must be buying Ferraris, buying huge houses, that in reality they're actually just working longer hours. Yeah, they get paid more, but they're also working 12 to 14 hours a day. What you can see is they're earning lots of money, but they're not actually happy, because spending 14 hours a day and working weekends on a job which you may not enjoy takes you away from your family, takes you away from your friends, and stops you doing things which you prefer. And that could be meeting your mates, playing a sport or whatever. Yeah, I can see that lawyers will be quite happy to earn £200,000 a year, but if they're working 70, 80-hour weeks and not seeing their family and friends, then they're probably not that happy. So what advice would you give someone to make sure that they are better at managing their money and have a better relationship with money if they do have some sort of mental health issues?
Okay, good question. There are many things you can do, but I would say first of all, maybe try and find someone that you can confide in about your difficulties, whether that's like a friend or a family member, someone that you trust. Tell them what's going on, tell them where you're at, and they'll just be able to provide emotional support and maybe some practical support if you need it. That's a really good first place to start. After that, maybe you might want to consider asking your bank if there's anything they can do to support you. They might be able to, change the kind of format they use to contact you, or like change how frequently they contact you, things like that. So maybe if you're struggling to manage your finances, they can provide a bit more support, or like support that's more suited to you. Another thing I would suggest in terms of your mental health in particular is to make sure you're looking after yourself. You really need to prioritize self-care. So make sure you're sleeping enough, make sure you're eating well and staying hydrated. Try and avoid using drugs and too much alcohol to manage your emotions. Make sure you're getting a little bit of exercise every day if you can, and that you're staying connected with your friends and family. Things like that will contribute to your overall well-being, and then they might make you feel like you're in a better place to then start addressing your financial problems. Do you have anything else to add to that, Anthony?
I would say that there's always help out there. There's help from charities and help from your banks. Banks are there to set up so that you can ask them for help if you're in financial trouble. That money is a tool, and don't forget that it's not there to strike fear in your life. It's there to be used as a tool to make your life better and easier. So if you are in financial troubles, there is help out there, and don't think that it's over. There's always someone who can help you out. So just always remember that.
I think another point, which I found quite useful actually, is maybe if you're struggling with things like overspending online, there are like website blockers, and you can remove like the autofill for credit cards so that you can't spend your money on certain websites online. You might also want to think about just getting rid of your credit cards if that's where one of your problems is.
There's a big thing, and it's a big burden that a lot of people have, and can put a lot of pressure on your mental well-being as well as your relationships. So there are many different ways in which you can pay off debt, and prioritizing getting rid of that debt first is so important, as it's a big stress reliever.
Yeah, and also I think maybe like making time in your diary as well to go through your finances, and then paying off like your high priority things, so maybe your bills, your rent, etc., and then leaving the lower priority stuff for another time, but just being really organised about getting things paid off and making time in your life to work on your finances can be quite helpful.
Yeah, and I'll put a video up here which talks about things that you should do with your money, like setting up an emergency fund, separating your money out so that it's in different bank accounts, so certain money is there just purely for your bills, and other money is there so that you can save money or pay off debt, which are really important, just to separate your money out, not just thinking you have like one big paycheck in and then loads of money out and you don't really have any control over it, because having control is really key to understand where your money's going and your financial future.
Definitely. Yeah, good idea.
Well, thank you, Maddie, and if you want to find more of Maddie's content, go follow her on Instagram at Maddie Freeman Fitness, and I'll put a link in the description below. And if you have enjoyed today's video, which is a little bit different from what I normally provide to you, then let me know in the comment section. If you have enjoyed it and want to see more from Maddie, then let me know. And before you go, if you have enjoyed today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.
Bye guys.